Hey all, welcome back to another episode of Community Deep Dive. In this video series, we are diving deep into different community topics with community experts across the globe. So today we have Todd Nilson. He has over 25 years of experience with community building and strategizing. He is the founder of Clockwork Advisors and a person with good amount of knowledge with communities, with the amount of experience he has. Glad to have you here, Todd.
Thanks for inviting me to be on the show. So honored to be here.
Great, great. Thanks a lot. Todd, why don't you give a quick intro about yourself and talk about your involvement with the communities?
Yeah, of course. Just to kind of make a minor correction, I haven't been doing community building formally for 25 years. I've been certainly doing it informally for a lot longer than that. I actually entered the community professional space back around 2013. And at the time I joined a marketing consulting firm that was doing implementations of Jive software back at the time, and really got bitten by the community bug. But I actually run a couple of companies. One is Clockwork Advisors, which I started in 2015, and through this organization, I provide consulting community strategy for organizations globally, both in the B2B and in nonprofit spaces, and really enjoy doing that work of the variety of working with organizations, both on externally facing communities for customers and partners, but also internally facing communities for digital workplaces for employees.
Okay.
My other company is talent-led, and this is a new venture with my partner İlker Akansel out of Turkey. And he and I built that because prior to my life as a community professional, I was a technical recruiter for over 15 years, and really enjoyed that process of matching up people to the right opportunities. And now, having been in the community space for a long while, looking back on my prior work that I had done in the recruiting space, it occurred to İlker and I, as we were collaborating together, that there really wasn't anything built around communities of talent. If you ask a recruiter what a community of talent is, they'll say, "Oh, that's my talent pipeline," or "That's my resume my resume database in my ATS system," which, of course, as you and I know, as community professionals, is not the case at all. So we founded that organization specifically to help companies think about how they enable talent journeys through the use of community platforms and technology. And then I have a third company, but that is actually more of a collaboration of love. That's the Community Consultants Collective, just started this year, and is for community professionals who are on the independent path of being a freelancer or a consultant, rather than being tied to a particular company as a community manager or director or operations person. So sorry, a bit of a mouthful, but that's it's been a busy year for me. I've had a lot going on.
Yeah, definitely. Quite extensive amount of experience you have across communities and also the recruitment industry. That's great, Todd. So today, right, we want to discuss about how you leverage online communities for business success, right? So let's just divide the discussion into three different sections and deep dive into each of it. So the first thing that we want to talk about is how do you align your community to your business objectives? Is there a process, a way to identify what are your business objectives that you want to align with the community? And from your experience, share some insights on it.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a tremendously important starting topic for any organization that is contemplating putting together an online community as part of their business approach. And a lot of this is going to depend on, a lot of the answer is going to depend on whether you are a startup or an independent business owner, a creator of some sort, or if you're more of an enterprise level organization. Is there one of those, or would you like me to touch upon both of them? What would be your preference for your audience on the
I think
podcast?
we can talk about the enterprises and also the brands that have a large set of audience.
Sure. So I think for brands and organizations, obviously with a larger organization, there's greater complexity around understanding what the business goals and objectives happen to be. I just spent some time thinking and writing about this for the Community Leadership Institute. And so this is a topic that's very fresh on my mind. As a community professional, if you're trying to align the business goals or objectives of the organization with your community, that begins with making some efforts to understand what your leadership team is looking to achieve for their organization, and that might be published in if your company or your brand is publicly traded. That might be something that you can glean from investor calls and looking at transcripts of what the goals are of the organization. It might be available from in-house meetings or town hall sessions where executive leadership is addressing employees. It might be in your annual reports. It might be in other company presentations that you can glean that information from. But it's always great if you can have a direct connection with somebody from the leadership team, have a champion of community or someone from the leadership team who believes in what you're doing, but can translate what's happening at the leadership levels of the organization, and what kinds of key performance indicators they're looking for, or objectives and key results they happen to be looking for, so that you can begin to align your community to one or more of those business goals and objectives. Ideally, you're going to ask for a sit down with one or more members of your leadership team, and they can be difficult to get in front of depending on the size of the organization or how much layering there is in the hierarchy of that organization. So what I always suggest is, treat it like you're going in to interview them for their background and what they care about and what that information is. You need to go prepared with a list of questions. And I was originally trained as a journalist, and so what that means to me by being prepared is that you want to have like 20 or more questions written out ahead of time, have them written down, have them on a sheet of paper nearby, but put them away and sit down in front of the leader and have a conversation with them. And then at the end of that conversation, if you can't remember some of your questions, you say, hey, you know what? I wrote down some things. Do you mind if I pull them out and see if I've missed anything? Nobody's going to tell you no. And then you can ask the rest of those questions that may be on your mind. Once you've understood what some of those business objectives are, maybe they're about efficiency, maybe they're about reducing or deflecting calls from the call center. Maybe they're about improving net promoter score or increasing the amount of innovation in the organization. These goals are going to change on maybe sometimes even a quarterly basis, depending on how volatile your space happens to be. And having your community ready to be aligned to one or more of those goals. I don't pretend that you can necessarily address all of them, because if you try to do too many things, you can end up doing none of them very well. But aligning yourself to the goals that it looks like the community can have the biggest effect on, and then communicating or reflecting that back to the leadership team or your stakeholders is the way that you really work to align it. It's not just about aligning, it's also about effectively communicating that back to the leadership team about what you're trying to do.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's always good to have strong communication with the leadership team of how this is exactly aligned to the business objectives of a particular business. That's really good. So from your experience again, like what do you think are some of the common objectives people align to communities in general? Obviously, there are like multiple things that you can align, but what do you see as a common use case for big brands using communities or building communities around their brand, right?
Sure, sure. I mean, I think I've already mentioned a couple things like innovating products or services is one the community can definitely serve. Providing support or deflecting call volumes from help desks or help ticketing systems is another. Ensuring customer loyalty or building advocacy is absolutely another big one. But it's going to vary a bit depending on the industry and what someone's trying to do. If you're working for a healthcare organization and you've got a community that is geared towards people who share a particular illness or addiction or health challenge, it may have to do with how fast people are responded to in the community. It may have to do with people that say that they've been helped as a result of the community. So your mileage is going to vary based on the type of business you have, or the kind of industry, or the kind of space in which you participate. But those are some common ones that I see come up on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. And then what are some of the best communities that you have come across that has a good job in aligning to the objectives?
Yeah, I'm always terrible at the giving examples side of things. There are sort of the usual suspects that people like bringing up all the time, like Sephora or Fitbit or Lego. I'm not going to really go down that road too much. I'll say, some communities that I worked with. I am very fond of the Truth Initiative, which is an organization based out of Washington, D.C. in the United States that is all about helping to prevent or help people quit their use of tobacco and vaping products. And they've been running an online community since 2009 called X, the X community, which is, it's got, I think, it's going to be close to 500,000, registered members, for it. So it's not the biggest of communities, but it is a pretty large one. And they've been very effective. I've been fortunate to work with them over a course of years now. They've been very effective at building a community around supporting people trying to quit their tobacco or vaping habits, both as a free public service in conjunction with the Mayo Clinic, as well as through their work with corporate wellness programs and individual healthcare providers and individual employers who offer some vouchers for going through their program. They have an average response time of and it's not paid staff that's doing this. It's actually other members of the community. Average response time of about 12 minutes on a post, which is incredible, and and it's so important to that particular group. So for them, success is making sure that people who are coming in and trying to quit smoking or vaping, that they are seen and heard very quickly. It's not so much what is even said back to them. It's that I posted something and somebody was there for me right away, just when I needed help. And so the timeliness is a strong driver of value with them. So they're a top of mind example for me about a community that's doing it well and doing it right. And I'm sure there are many other wonderful examples out there of online communities that are doing a great job to engage with people. I mean, I think of organizations like Miro and Notion that are sort of the darlings right now, particularly Notion, of decentralized online communities and how they're building that. But I'll leave that to others who are far more capable at rolling examples off of their tongues.
All right, but that's a great example that you shared. Wonderful. Right. I mean, now let's kind of get into the next section of the discussion. So we want to talk about the building blocks of communities, right? So what do you think are the fundamentals to build a powerful and a highly engaging community around your brand that meets your business objectives?
Sure. Well, I'm a fan of making sure that what you're offering is pretty unique, and that, that you are doing something extraordinary. You'll talk about. I don't know if your viewers are familiar with the community canvas. The
Yeah.
community canvas, communitycanvas.org, I think it's got a hyphen in it, is a wonderful open source. I think it's a one of those share and share alike licenses
Mhm.
that anybody can use. That is a nice framework for planning and building online communities. I use a personalized version of that for some of my consultancy delivery that I do. Maybe I've changed up some of the questions a little bit around it, but I think it's important to go through that process of understanding
Mhm.
and putting together what the organization needs with what members are going to need in that
Okay.
space.
Okay.
And one of the things that I don't really like talking about it with the community canvas is they've got this document on the canvas that's called the minimally viable community.
Okay.
And it's something that if it comes up on a call or if somebody sort of spots it on the website and they'll say, what is this MVC? You know, what does minimally viable mean? Minimally viable means something different than I think most people bring to it. Minimally viable means I've done the minimum necessary, I think, to a lot of people, that I've just kind of created this thing that meets expectations.
Mhm.
But if you create something that merely meets expectations, it's not going to stand out in the marketplace. It's not offering anything special.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've always kind of gone back to, there's a wise friend I worked with years ago at an agency who said minimally viable product means that you need to have at least one thing about this product that is delightful to other
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
If you don't have that thing that stands out about the community, then there's no compelling reason for people to join. It's not merely that I'm going to solve your problem with my SaaS based software. It's that you're going to give me this amazing cheat sheet with all of the shortcut keys, or you're going to give me this wonderful mini course that's going to allow me to do like incrementally better at using your product within the space. It's I'll sometimes talk about it as the ninja candy effect. So the ninja candy effect is basically you've gone to a parade, an outdoor parade, and you're sort of watching the band go by and everything. And you know, there's people, everybody's having a good time, and they're sort of watching, you know, and participating in the parade. And then you reach into your pocket and you see that suddenly there's candy there. So it's sort of that unexpected moment of delight where, oh my goodness, a ninja put candy in my pocket, and I didn't know it, but wow, isn't it cool? This is the best parade ever. We need to build those experiences into our communities, and if we're not doing that, we're missing an opportunity, because those kinds of memorable moments are what keep people coming back.
Yeah, exactly. The small experiences that people get out of the community is very important. And I think having that value that's being delivered to the members is very critical. And that again acts as a fundamental to or the core of a good community, I guess, right?
Exactly. And I don't mean to de-emphasize the community canvas. I think it's a very effective tool. And I've, even before the canvas came out, I did frameworks that were very close to that. I just like the way that it's formulated, where you're spending time through this framework addressing the critical areas, the core building blocks of community. Using that, you're spending time to talk about and understand the identity of the community, who's it for, but what are you getting out of it? What does success look like? What's the brand or identity of that space? You're spending time thinking about the experience. What are people going to do when they come into and experience on a day-to-day basis that community? And then what's the underlying structure of that? How is it going to be run on a day-to-day basis? Who handles governance? How is it monetized, if it's monetized? Who are the various roles, and what roles do they play in supporting the community over time? These are all critical questions, and having, I don't care if you don't use the community canvas, being able to address all of those things in some sort of charter document for the community, I think is a critical to success step for any community build.
I think it's quite fundamental that you need to go through this process even before you get started with the community, because I see a lot of people who don't go through this process and they just create a community and like start building it over, which I think is not effective and is not going to meet the objectives, right?
Right. Very true, very true. And I think now more than ever, because I think as you and I have both seen in recent years, there are now a variety of community options that I would call turnkey community opportunities. And even large enterprises may be going this direction. Like, I can turn on a Discord community really easily. I can start up a Mighty Networks. I can build, a discourse or any of a number of things that with minimum configuration and care, I can build the software side of the community experience. That doesn't matter, but it's blocking and tackling around these key questions. Who's it for? What do they get out of it? What are they going to do on a day-to-day basis? If you're not answering those things, you're setting yourself up for failure. Absolutely.
Yeah, very true, very true. I think tools are just there to help you out with managing your communities, but more importantly, I think people need to focus on actually like strategizing the whole community even before they start building it out. That's a very good point that you had shared. Like, I think a lot of people would follow this process of having everything on papers, documented, right? Understand the objectives, and also go through the whole process. I think that's very important before even we start building out a community. Thanks for sharing that. And sorry, Todd?
Oh, I just said you bet. That's fine.
All right. So networking is one another key for any online community, right? So do you have some strategies? I mean, from your experience again, what are some of the interesting strategies that you have had with using this networking amongst the community? Or if you set up the fundamentals right, is the networking going to happen like automatically, or you have to keep this constant nudges that you have to do to engage your community?
So I'll say it might happen automatically, but you can't trust that it's going to happen automatically. The community that I mentioned earlier, the Truth Initiative. I mean, that started in 2009, I think, as a Ning community. Those of you who've been around for a while will recognize that and say, wow, that's a real blast from the past. But I mean, interaction did happen there, but it was only because the purpose of that community, the way that it was set up, was to serve people who were in desperate need of support from others. And so they clung to each other, and that turned into networking opportunities. People were always online greeting each other on a day-to-day basis. And then that actually turned into some live meetings that they did over time. You can't count on those things automatically happening. That's like walking out to your garden plot and just tossing a bunch of seeds out and hoping that things grow in nice rows. You can't expect that it's going to work that way. I'm a firm believer in intentional design for for social situations, but designing things in a way that it doesn't seem so regimented or military in its approach.
Mm-hmm.
There's an Italian term from literature called sprezzatura,
Uh-huh.
and sprezzatura means almost literally practiced ease. It was something that courtiers during the Renaissance held up as a great value. You needed to show that you were highly skilled, but you needed to show it in such a way that it doesn't look like you are really trying. And that's, I think, an ideal to go for when you're building networking opportunities within your community. That may mean that you are making it very easy for members to create their own meetup events, and supporting them through that, but making it seem like, well, yeah, I'm happy to support you, but not make a big thing out of it. Like, just kind of be there, set up a Zoom for them, or set up whatever means you have for them to get together. It means creating regular, I like to think of them as coffee house situations where you've got people come together and maybe there's a casual discussion of a topic, but it doesn't necessarily need to stay on target, for that approach. But it also means having, some set experts or people to come in who are influential or influencers within your space, who can draw a crowd, creating opportunities for people to meet, not only virtually but in person, in places where it's easy to kind of split off into smaller groups. There's an architectural principle about when you're designing a physical space, that if you have a large common space, you need to provide alcoves or small places where people can kind of step aside and have those conversations. I think when we're designing community experiences, we need to be thinking about what are the alcoves that we're creating to help people come together as well. So I'm ranging across literature and architecture and all kinds of wild topics today. Give me enough time and I'll work a Dungeons and Dragons reference into it. So.
Definitely, because I mean, whatever you share is like very insightful and like thought-provoking. When you said you need to provide these small experiences outside of the common space, I think it's becoming very important to have these spaces for people to. I think it's all about setting up the environment for you people to uh, network freely and also enjoy being the part of the community. I think that's very important.
It is, and those things can happen on a couple of different platforms. And I think it's something that I'm very excited about looking forward. For pretty much the history of online communities, going back into the 1980s and the start of the Well and other early online community experiences, ranging from bulletin board services to AOL chat rooms. It was always about text as the primary way to interact with other people. But starting within the last 10, 15 years, we've had video as a means to interact with others. But it's hard to scale video, and it's hard to create durable knowledge with video. It's a little harder to access. You've got to watch the video to get at things. I think one of the next things that's exciting to me about these spaces for networking purposes is that we're now tearing down the artificiality of virtual events as being places where you have to be matched up with somebody else to have a conversation. I think we've been trying to chip away at the friction of that, so it's easier to meet people in a serendipitous kind of way. And so I'm very excited about semi-immersive virtual reality or augmented reality technologies and what that's going to mean for community builders in the not very distant future, where we already have a lot of these technologies are in existence. They're just not well distributed yet. So, so I think having the opportunity for a virtualized environment, which any of us who grew up on gaming environments and the virtual worlds and first-person shooter games would recognize, as you wander around those places, you meet people and you encounter things in a serendipitous kind of fashion. we're now seeing like a generation of VR-based technologies that are
Mm-hmm.
coming out that enable networking situations that are much more organic and interesting, where people can collide with each other randomly rather than being matched up or feel like they've been kind of put into a list, like list A is being matched with list B. I don't care. Like, I just want to meet somebody, at an event. And I think if we can start building those virtualized experiences into communities, text is going to become a little less important. It'll be more of the archive, and the person-to-person interactions that we enjoy, frankly, in virtual meetings like this are going to be, I think, more of the norm, that we'll have something more 24/7 of this, where I can kind of wander into an open community space and meet 5 or 6 people that have the same interests or concerns that I do.
Yeah, definitely. The future is exciting, and I'm sure there are a bunch of companies that are already working on these concepts, having these virtual experiences. I think one of the company that comes to my mind is Gather, who
Sure.
create these virtual experiences for people to just walk in and have a chat with anyone. I mean, they started off like a workspace. People can create these virtual workspaces. I've used it, and obviously it's really cool to um, be in this time where there's like a lot of exciting technologies that's coming out, and definitely it's going to evolve the way communities are built and scaled. Right? Cool.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So let's get into the last section that we want to discuss about. So we talked about aligning communities to business objectives. We talked about the fundamentals of building online communities. I think all these are good. We need to definitely kind of go through the process. Now, let's talk about how you measure the outcomes of a community. I think that is one of the toughest parts that a lot of brands face challenges with, right? So, what do you think are the metrics that the brands need to focus on when they want to measure the outcomes of whatever they do with their community, and if that's meeting their business objectives?
Yeah, I mean, I think that uh, the science is in the details for some of that, so it's a little hard to talk about it at a generic level. But I mean, I always distinguish between the metrics that speak to the health of the community, things that are level of activity, monthly active users,
Mhm.
number of original posts and comments and things like that, that tell me that there is a heartbeat that's alive and well in a community, versus things that are actually measuring the business outcomes and objectives. So what for me, that looks like it's a little harder to get at some of that data, will be things like, how many testimonials have we gotten from members of the community this month? How many advocates do we have who have proposed and run events related to our brand, in this amount of time? How many tickets have we deflected as a result of people accessing the community, or frequently asked questions, or received peer help instead? These things are a little tougher to get at, but they actually point to the real value of the community over time. And I always say that when expressing that, because it's not so much that I care about what those KPIs are, it's that I'm reflecting the care and concern of what a leadership team is looking at and what they're trying to accomplish with their goals. And so my vested interest is making sure that my community continues to get budget, full budget, or more than full budget, over the next year, which is, I think, something that community professionals have traditionally struggled with. And I think the key to being successful at doing that is not only being able to tell the story about some of those key performance indicators and how they've been impacted by the community, but to personalize that through a couple of powerful individual stories. Executive leaders are swayed yes, by numbers, but also by emotion. And to be able to describe how someone was impacted,
Mhm.
and to put it in stark terms, to come back to my example that I've been using around the Truth Initiative, there are people that I talk to from that community who regularly provide testimonials to say, I don't know what I would have done in my life without this community, or I would have started smoking again or vaping again if I hadn't been with this community, or I would have died if I did not have this community. And now, if your company is a SaaS-based provider of accounting software, you're probably not going to have anybody that says, this software saved my life. But maybe people saying this software saved my job, and being able to tell a story about that. I just came across, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I just came across this morning, there was a white paper that came across my feed about storytelling in online communities, and the kinds of communities that tend to have people within their comments or their posts tell stories or personal narratives about things tend to be things that are a little bit more on the nonprofit or healthcare side of things. People want to share what their experiences were. But I think enabling your customers within your online communities, if you're in the tech space, to tell their stories, to express the drama of what they're doing, is something that's worth, as a community manager, trying to encourage within your spaces, because those things are incredibly powerful when it comes to making sure that you get a fully funded roadmap for your
Mhm.
community from your leadership teams.
Thanks a lot for putting it in a very interesting way. Obviously, I think more times like community managers need to understand it's not just about the data. I think it's about the stories of people inside the community. I think that's more important, and it's a good way to measure the communities as well. Are people like getting the maximum value out of it and enjoying their time with the community, and are they expressing it enough, right? I think those are some of the strong indicators that the community is working fine, and obviously have the data to uh, tell the other parts. But yeah, obviously that's a very interesting pointer that you brought in. Great. So yeah, I mean, we have come to the end of the session. Before we end the session, I want to ask some rapid questions to you. I mean, these are
Uh-oh.
like
Did I put on my seatbelt here?
I mean, these are like not related to communities, just like quick questions. So are you a book person or a movie person?
Wow. Like both, but I'm a comic book guy. I've been reading comic books since I was a little kid. I learned to read on comic books.
Ah, that's very interesting. So, I mean, if you need to recommend a book to the viewers, what's that interesting book that you'd like to share?
Um, well, a community, or can it be anything?
Amazing.
I've got one here close at hand. I've been really enjoying this one. This is a recent read of mine. This is Jane McGonigal's Imaginable. I am not paid to advertise this. I just happen to have it handy. I think one of the things. So Jane McGonigal is with the Institute for the Future, and so she does a lot of future foresight study. And I don't think we do quite enough to long cast our understanding of the future of our communities. And one of the things that she provides is a framework for doing that, casting the imagination ahead 10 years, so that you start letting go of some of the strictures of things that you might throw up as roadblocks to technology breakthroughs, or things that you might bring up that are probably more realistic within the next year or two. Just sort of like leaving some of those blinders behind. I've been really fascinated by that, because I have always been an early adopter of new technologies, and I'm fascinated to think about the ways in which the communities we're running now are going to be different in 10 years time. So sorry, long answer to your short question, but that's a book that I like right now.
Definitely. I'm going to drop a link above of the book so that the viewers can check out. Okay, who do you think is one community expert that you think needs to be a part of community deep dive, and who you think can add a lot of value to this video series?
I would say you should probably talk to Lais de Oliveira, the author of Hacking Communities, if you haven't already. She's amazing. And if you haven't talked to Deb Shell, whose recent book just came out as well, which is another, I'm doing product placements today, Creator to Community Builder. She's also quite brilliant, and I think she'd be a great guest for you too.
Definitely, I'm going to reach out to them. And I think you have a lot of books on your table.
I do.
All right. I think that's the end of the session. Thanks a lot, Todd. I think we had an interesting discussion about different things with respect to with aligning your community to the objectives. Like we talked about the fundamentals of having a strong community, and then we also talked about how do you measure the impact of an online community. Whatever you shared, I really enjoyed it. I personally learned a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing all your expertise and experience with us.
I was, as I said at the beginning, honored to be invited. Omnath, you're a joy to talk to, and I look forward to hearing more great things from you in the future as well.
Definitely, Todd. Enjoy your holidays. Have a great week ahead.
Thank you.